Welcome to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some news stories, shall we? The first story is called Night Shift Compliance. Many years ago, I worked as a maintenance guy on an automated assembly line. It was my job to perform quality audits throughout the section of the line where I worked. If something didn't pass inspection, then I would put the product on hold and test additional samples. Whenever this further tests failed, I would stop production, notify the lead or supervisor and then troubleshoot and repair the machine in question. For a few years, I worked the night shift. The night shift supervisor, who I will call Mr. Gray, had a habit of vanishing for most of the night. He would be around at the start of the shift and then he would show up after the morning meeting until the end of the shift. As I was doing my audits one night, I found a machine that was drifting out of spec. I shut it down and paged him. But he didn't respond. I found the issue causing the quality failure and got the parts required for the repair. The repair took about an hour, followed by testing 100% of the product for a few minutes. Meanwhile, he returned from the morning meeting. He was angry and walked straight up to me and asked who authorized me to shut down his machine. I tried to explain that it had failed in audit and that I was just following the procedure. But he wasn't interested in anything I had to say. Apparently, during the morning meeting, he reported that our area was running with no issues. An engineer who would walk our area each morning contradicted him and said that the technician had one of the machines down for an hour and was just now releasing it to production. He gave me a written warning and told me that I do not have the authority to stop production without his approval. A month or so later, a similar situation arose and I tried paging him. Guess who didn't respond? I should mention that this was well before cell phones, and no, we didn't carry pagers. To page someone, you had to call the reception desk and they would page them. But since there wasn't a receptionist at night, this function was handled by a security guard. I told security to page him every 5 minutes until he responded. They wanted to do it every 30 minutes, but I insisted on nothing less than every 10 minutes, and I also wanted them to log each page. This was a normal procedure, but they often would just record one entry in the log regardless of how many times they repeat the page. When the engineer came in, he looked at my audit sheet and asked me why I hadn't stopped production. I explained that I had been told I couldn't without Mr. Gray's approval. I also told him that security had been paging him every 10 minutes since I found the issue. The engineer stopped production and told me to begin repairs. He then got a copy of the log from security and went to the morning meeting. When Mr. Gray reported that all machines were running with no issues, the engineer spoke up and asked why security had been paging him every 10 minutes for over 3 hours. I never did find out where Mr. Gray went every night or what he did, but he soon had more time to do whatever it was. The next story is called Spicy Sweets. I live in the UK and we have sweets named Skittles, rainbow-colored sweets that apparently take after fruits, and I love them. My favorites are the sour ones. Sometimes, like all sweet brands, they make limited edition versions. They made one with spicy flavors that, when you eat them, as well as getting normal flavors, they have a nice spice to them that comes out of nowhere. I usually do not like spicy food, but I love them. I was with a friend at a bus stop, waiting for a bus so we could go into town and play Pokemon Go, when I see this mother and her bratty kid. The kid walks up to me. "Are those Skittles?" "Yes. However, they aren't the ones you are used to." "Can I have some?" "No, sorry, they are spicy and I don't think you'll like them." "So? You won't like them." The bratty kid walks over to his mum and she walks over. "Excuse me, why can't my baby have your sweets?" "Because they are mine and they are spicy." "He won't like them." Karen scoffs. "Rubbish. Sweets can't be spicy. They are called sweets. Them being spicy is just stupid." I show her the bag that says Sweet Heat. "I don't care. Give him some." Now I see my bus approaching and I think of a genius plan. I turn to my friend and grin. "Sure, you can have some." I grab him a handful and he takes it as my bus arrives. We pay for our ticket and the kid puts all of them into his mouth at once. A bad idea. I can only smile in glee as every Skittle is chewed and the spice is released. I'll never forget his face as the bus drove away. The last story is called The Computer Knows Best. I spent several years working at a big box retail store in a small Midwestern town in their cellular phones department. On slow days in the afternoon before the main rush, I would help set up fixtures and displays throughout the sales floor. A lot of the store planograms or diagrams to set up product are computer generated based on previous year's sales figures and foot traffic. For instance, say your store sold a lot of sunscreens and flower seeds, the computer would create a planogram for or display to show such items, hoping to generate more sales. The computer would come up with wild combinations that apparently worked so well that when we brought up the bizarre nature of some of the planograms to our leadership, they'd just shrug and say, "If it's on the planogram, put it up." You see where I'm going with this? Now, let's set the stage. Our store neighbors a large fairground that houses one of the largest annual powwows in the world, where tens of thousands of folks from around the world come to participate. This powwow has some truly amazing shows and events from surrounding local and regional indigenous tribes, but like any other major event, there are some bad apples. One of the go-to-highs in the area is huffing cans of compressed air, and our store routinely sold out during this time, and we sometimes got yelled at for having none on the shelves and would have to call other stores to see if they had any. Unfortunately, huffing and public drunkenness became synonymous with the powwow by the non-indigenous locals rather than a great cultural exchange. The dancing ceremonies, in particular, are quite impressive, beautiful, and clearly take a lot of time and effort to put together. So, the last year I worked at this store, it was the week of the powwow and I got asked to help set up a computer-generated stack base. The stack base consisted of disposable cameras, micro-cassette tapes, and cans of compressed air. Apparently, those were our largest sellers the year before. This was about 10 to 13 years ago and camera phones were not as widely available. So I guess people used recorders to record the music on microcassettes. Not wanting to be accused of racist corporate-sponsored high-pushing, I showed the planogram to my direct manager and suggested we swap out the cans of compressed air for obvious reasons. The boss, not wanting to be bothered playing Chips Challenge and Ski Free on the old manager computer in his office, sighed in annoyance and gave me the same old line. "If it's on the planogram, put it out. The computer knows best. So get it done." He was not my favorite boss at all, as his leadership style consisted of waddling out of his office, barking orders, then waddling back like a penguin. For instance, he loved getting on our cases for not parking in the wee back lot where employees should park even when it's icy out, but has no problem parking his sports car in the front because leadership earned those spots. In short, he earned the malicious compliance he was about to get. Especially since he knew what was on the planogram and heard my specific concerns about how it would be perceived. Not wanting to lose my job and seeing a chance for malicious compliance, I smiled, said, "You got it, boss," and went out to ensure his orders were followed. I was working with a co-worker, who we'll name Oscar, and he witnessed the exchange I had with the boss, whom Oscar didn't like either. Oscar and I assembled the stack base with the cans of compressed air, bulk packs no less for longer enjoyment, in the back stockroom, as our plan was to run it to the floor on a pallet jack, drop it off, and run. We didn't want any of our customers thinking we'd assembled this. Scores of stock workers came by, saw what we were putting together, some of them members of the local tribe, and expressed their shock at the level of bad taste. We showed them the planogram, explained very clearly that the boss signed off on it, even though we brought our concerns to him, and continued working. Once we completed the stack base, we conducted a quick bump test to ensure it would survive the hasty deployment, wheeled it to its designated spot near the front registers, and got the hell out. It was clearly meant for impulse buying. And the cherry on top was the signage for the pricing sign, which usually had a blurb that said something seasonally, along the lines of "Merry Christmas" or "Enjoy Spring." This one said something along the lines of "Enjoy summer events properly." 15 minutes later, I heard a loud and surprised "What the heck" from the front of the store. I could hear it clearly from my station on the other side of the building. Oscar and I looked at each other, knowing full well what was going down. On our department walkie we heard, "Management to the front end for customer courtesy please." And we saw the boss making his way out of the back, since he was the only manager on duty, looking fully annoyed and probably completely unaware of the storm he was about to walk into. We could hear the shouting from the rightfully so ticked off client. The boss was accused of just about everything, from racism to being a corporate shill. I don't think we heard him get a single word in. We wanted to feel bad for the customer and the first employee who responded. But knowing the boss was being dished his much-needed punishment for not listening to his subordinates when they brought up a genuine concern was very satisfying, almost glorious. Within a minute, we saw a backroom employee take a pallet jack on the floor and wheel the stack base of shame back to the stockroom to be fixed. An hour later, a co-manager, the boss's right hand, and an OK boss, came out and asked what happened, as it was our names that assembled the stack base. We explained we went to the boss with our concerns and he told us to assemble it anyway, so we did as we were told. The co-manager nodded in agreement, as he had heard the same from others who saw us assembling the stack base and expressed their concerns. Apparently, the customer filed a complaint with corporate, and so leadership was checking the cameras and everything to get a timeline of events. The co-manager told us we did exactly as we should have by informing management of our concerns and doing our jobs when told to, and then walked back. That was the last Oscar and I heard of the incident, other than a new policy that computer-generated planograms had to be vetted by management first. The boss kept his job, unfortunately. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.